The Alberta government has hit pause on its order to remove books with explicit sexual content from public libraries, but Premier Danielle Smith says that pause won't last long. Speaking at an unrelated news conference on Tuesday, Smith confirmed that new rules governing library content are coming soon.
The direction will be to take books with pornographic images out of the libraries and to leave the classics alone. I think that there was some misunderstanding of the order. We have, for the third time, also published the graphic images in the books under question that have been available to children as young as elementary school. So hopefully this third time around, as we repost those images with warning, because they are very graphic, we are hoping that the school boards understand what it is we're trying to achieve. It includes oral sex, it includes threesomes, it includes a child having their pants pulled down by an adult. I mean, do I need to be any more clear about what graphic images that we are trying to remove from the school libraries? We are not trying to remove classics of literature. What we are trying to remove is graphic images that young children should not be having a look at. Please go and have a look at them yourself and use whatever discretion you feel you need to describe that to your audience without offending them. But that is what we are trying to remove from the school libraries. There has been some willful and purposeful misrepresentation and misunderstanding of the policy. I hate to have to be so graphic, but you know what? Those images shouldn't be shown to kids in elementary schools. So I hope that the school boards will work with us to remove pornographic images and leave classic books alone.
The decision has sparked debate over censorship, parental rights, and access to information. Earlier, I sat down with Rob Breckenridge, host of The Rob Breckenridge Show, to get his take on Alberta's controversial move.
Rob, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, you've written that the attempt to ban books in libraries turned into a fiasco. Can you walk us through what went wrong?
Yeah, it's interesting. And this goes back to earlier this year. And it's unclear where this came from, but it had been called to the government's attention that there were some controversial graphic novels that had been found in some Alberta schools. And some of these books have been a source of controversy elsewhere. So this was brought to the government's attention. They decided, rather than just sort of quietly tell the schools to get rid of those books, that they were going to turn this into a big policy. And they were going to get rid of inappropriate sexual material in Alberta schools. So eventually, and this went into July, they came out with a ministerial order that went to school boards that here's what counts as explicit sexual content that cannot be in any Alberta school. The problem was the wording was really vague, and it wasn't just about images, it was about descriptions, and it had different criteria for what would count as a description of explicit content. So we finally saw just last week in Alberta what that looks like when it's implemented. And you had this long list of books and well-known classics that were a part of this, including, Atlas Shrugged, which the premier has previously said is one of her favorite books. So that got huge attention, and now here we are this week. The government's saying, "Okay, well, we're gonna rewrite that order. We're gonna clarify the policies." That's kind of a short version, I guess, of where we are here.
And how exactly was the province defining what is and isn't age appropriate?
Right. So they had different categories, right? There was explicit content, which could not be in any school. There was non-explicit content that could potentially be in older grades, but under different sort of circumstances and age appropriate and all of those sorts of factors. So it was meant to sort of lay out those conditions. But again, the definition of explicit content, like, for example, in Atlas Shrugged, there's some passages where, without getting too into it, there's a male hand in a female breast in sort of a sexual context, and that was something that was very specifically included in the ministerial order, that counts as explicit content, and therefore that cannot be in any school. So I think the government sort of backed itself into a bit of a corner here, and maybe this wasn't as well thought out. Now, look, they've accused the Edmonton Public School Board of overreaching here or viciously complying, as the premier said. But it's pretty clear that the books that they singled out do meet this definition. And so that's where now this is getting, coverage. The BBC and the New York Times and Margaret Atwood is speaking out about this. Of course, Handmaid's Tale is one of the books that was on this list. So, yeah, I think the Alberta government's been stung by some of the embarrassment of all of this. And again, they've sort of lashed out at the school board, but ultimately, it's their order, it's their conditions, it's their criteria, and it looks like it's back to the drawing board here.
Well, now that the ban has been paused and is still being figured out, how much political capital did the UCP waste on this, and why did they feel the need to go this route to begin with?
Well, look, and I think there are some legitimate concerns, and not even just socially conservative Albertans. I think a lot of middle of the road Albertans, and this goes back to, for example, Alberta brought in a policy, as other provinces have, regarding gender pronouns or the use of names in schools, and the idea that parents should be aware what's going on in school, what's going on with their kids, and that seems to resonate with a lot of Albertans, right? There's some level of support for that. And so this kind of dovetails off of that. The idea that, well, hang on, are your kids going to be exposed to inappropriate content in school that you're not aware of? So I think they thought this was a winning issue. And in particular, these four graphic novels that have been singled out. I don't think they really thought anyone's going to defend this stuff, or maybe it'll just be the hard left defending this, and this will be another winning issue for us. So I think that's where they saw the political opportunity. The people that want this out of schools are going to be happy. A lot of middle of the road Albertans will see that kind of stuff and say, yeah, that probably shouldn't be in schools. And maybe you've got some people on the far left that are going to raise a fuss, and I don't think the UCP minds that fight. Problem is how they went about implementing it, and it turned into a huge debate, a much larger debate about censorship and classic literature that I don't think the government was ready for or wanted.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for the time and thank you for breaking that down for us.